day 14 of my 20-day water fast. Well, made it to a big milestone moment. 2 weeks without eating anything. Just having my, crap, I don't even have any, filling my bottles of water here. Nothing but water. So yeah, it's been quite the journey. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling my collarbone here, and unfortunately it still moves just a little bit, so it hasn't seated quite yet. So that's a little like, oh god, I guess, it had seated before, and then the break happened, a few days ago, the re-break. So I'm hoping that come Monday it will be settled. But yeah, sometimes it could take 2 weeks for the initial settling to kick in, and then and then for the healing to fully go. So I don't know. Anyways, well, this experiment has definitely been tainted from me re-breaking 2.5 weeks in, re-breaking my collarbone, which is just so stupid. But maybe, it's been a powerful learning lesson for me about not being careful. Yeah. And I think I've been resisting being careful. Because that was the message my mom would always tell me. She worried so much. And so one of her things that she'd say over and over and over and over again, like a broken record, like, be careful, be careful, be careful. And I think a part of me just kind of, it's like rebelling against it, like, yeah, just rebelling against it. I'm like, well, I'm gonna not be careful just to get back at you, or something like that. But in the end, it's like I'm hurting myself. It's just like, I think I'm like, oh, getting back at her or something, but how is hurting myself getting back at her? Like, that's just stupid. And God, it's definitely like a childish thinking, Well, we were all children, at one time, and unfortunately, I think a lot of us are still mostly children, just in adult bodies. And that's what I'm learning. So yeah, this experience has definitely reinforced that and really helped to illuminate that for myself about, like, okay, it's not good to just throw out being careful. Like, it's okay to be careful. There's a time and place to be careful, when it's high risk, when it's a high risk to yourself, to your body, things like that. But anyways, so yeah, so it's been good, at least be conscientious about it. Anyways, that's, yeah, that was one thing that came up through this process. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, so day 14, weighed myself. pH is still at 5.75 again. So, like for a period of time it was at 6, and it dropped back to 5.75, and now it's staying at 5.75. So, and I drank over 3 liters of water. And when I weighed myself, came in at 188.7. Which is a little bit, not a pound, less than a pound from yesterday. Yesterday was 189.3. So 188.7. So, but it's still trending downward. Went to the bathroom about 6 times. Water pH was a little higher, 9.7. TDS 113, EC 227, got up at like 7:29, and I was like, just woke up, went, oh, time to do my meditation, put my headset on, pulled up my meditation track and then started listening to my Hollow Sync meditation track, which I'm currently on. Purification level 3, 0.5, immersion 0.5. That's the level for all you any of you Hollow Sync aficionados out there. You know what that means. And then yeah, I had a long day. Yeah, it was a long day for sure. It was well, actually, to be honest, I totally slept. I had such a long day that literally by the time I was done, it was so late, and I was just finally tired and exhausted. But it was just because I had just such a long day. I was doing so much that literally this is actually the next morning, so I'm technically on the next day. But I failed to make the video last night, so you see the lighting is a little bit different or something. It's daytime right now, so. Yeah, so I was so exhausted, like I couldn't, my whole body was just like, go to sleep. I was shutting down, and then so I laid down and I just passed right out. So this is a recap of what happened for yesterday, the day 14 for me. But what else? Yeah, so drove all day again, was driving all day, didn't have any problems driving all day. Took my mom to the doctor, went out shopping, went shopping for a bunch of stuff for my room, went out to dinner with my mom. That was an interesting experience for me. Partially because I'd been reading this book called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung, MD, and I realize I'm like rubbing this thing right here as I'm talking. And he's like has this whole new theory of how obesity happens, and it's making a lot of sense, and it's really illuminating a lot of things for me, to such a degree that I recall just sitting there in the restaurant, almost kind of having like a Neo in the Matrix red pill moment as I'm like looking around, observing, because there's something interesting that occurs when you completely abstain from eating food and then you go into a restaurant. You then you're no longer a participant, you now are an observer. And you have a different experience when you're just purely an observer, because now you're not invested in anything there, so you don't have to like rationalize why something's good or not good, because then you're rationalizing what's on your own plate, and like, you can't say, oh, that's a horrible thing to eat, meanwhile you're eating it too, kind of thing. So because I was in that state, and of course the doing the fast has a very, very much a mind clearing, cleansing element to it, that you just start thinking sharper, you start noticing more, you start becoming a little more intuitive, your awareness expands a bit, I would say. That as I'm like looking around and just observing people, I started just noticing people, watching people, looking at people's bodies, looking at the facial expressions, glancing down what was on their plate, what was on the tray in front of them, what were they eating, like, and then like noticing, if they had children, what were they feeding their kids, and then like seeing the smiles on the kids and all that stuff as he's like stuffing a whole plate of spaghetti into his mouth, and then looking at his two, morbidly obese parents, and then looking at these relatively thin kids, but they are already starting to get a little plump, but they weren't, they were just slightly plump and not really fat yet. But I was like, they're doomed, I looked at them, I'm like, wow, the way their parents looked, that's their destiny. And it was, it made me think that was, I kind of had a similar experience because, my mom was overweight, and diabetic, pre-diabetic and everything, when she had me. And so I could see that it's like, wow, the struggles that I've experienced in my life about dealing with my weight, that those two little kids were going to, unless something radical changes for them, that they were pretty much destined to experience a lot of the same heartache and struggle and, shame and, rejection and all that stuff that I experienced throughout life due to, being overweight and definitely at times through my life, definitely being on the obese side. And it was really saddening for me to just see that and go, wow, those kids are screwed. And then looking around, I'm like, man, so many of these people, their kids are screwed. And that was really made me feel really sad, because it's like it's like when your parents are morbidly obese and have you, yeah, you're preset to be obese too now, from what I've been reading in that book. And it'll take so much effort to change that. And it's just like, Jesus, it sucks. It sucks. And I'm like, and I could see, and it's also a little bit of sympathy, compassion for myself too, knowing that I was dealt that card. At a hormonal level, I was preset to be obese from birth, just based on how big of a baby I was. I didn't realize that before. It was like, oh, you're such a huge baby. I was 12 pounds, 12 and a half pounds or something when I was born, which is ginormous for a baby, and I'm I see pictures and I'm just I can barely open my eyes because I have so much fat on my face. I'm just just pure fat. I'm just a big ball of fat, I looked adorable, of course, as a baby, but, fast forward to an adult, that doesn't look attractive. And as much as the parents were all oh, it's wonderful, you have a fat baby, it's good luck and all that stuff, now after reading this book, I'm like, Jesus, that was a major warning sign that I was in trouble. Babies should never be born that fat. That is unhealthy. A fat baby is an unhealthy baby. It's a baby that has hormonal problems. That their insulin sensitivity is off. They're holding on to unnecessary fat. And I just discovered that. I'm like, what the heck? I never knew this before. No one ever told me this before. And I used to think well, the fatter the baby is when born, the better. No, that's not true. In fact, it's worse. So it's a confirmation that kid is going to be fat, that they're predisposed to being obese. Even if they try to eat relatively healthy, they're going to be fat. And then if they eat not healthy, they're going to be obese. Versus someone who was born with normal hormones, normal insulin sensitivity. If they eat healthy, they're going to be super lean. And if they eat really bad, the worst they'll get is maybe a little fat. That's basically the way it comes down to. which it sucks that's, of course a person predisposes that, but if they're constantly eating really bad, high portions really bad, then they have the ability to mess up their hormone balance and get themselves to be closer to someone who has already born with a hormone imbalance. But, talk about a handicap, it's like you're handicapped from birth, and it's just like behind the 8 ball from birth, so it just sucks. And then no one tells you this, and you don't know. And truthfully, no one really knew back then. A lot of this is all newer information. I mean, I think they did. Well, no, I take that back. Actually, they did know 50 years ago. Some of this information, they discovered it 50 years ago. But agendas didn't want to, it was too the data was too upsetting to the current established agenda of, low fat, have low fat, and then low, and then sugar replacements, and I don't know. There were so many other things that just they didn't want to see this because it was too upsetting for them. So, but it's definitely been upsetting for me to just finally discover this. But it's true, as they say, the truth hurts. Truth hurts, but I'm, it's another piece of the puzzle for me to uncover how did my life turn out this way? Why did it turn out this way? And it's like a GPS. It's like you need to know where you're going, but it's also helpful with how did you get here? If there's something that's causing you to go in a certain direction, it's better find out why the hell you're going in that direction. It's what's causing you to go in that direction, and to identify it, to be able to take control over it, because you don't know why it's moving in a certain direction, and you try to go in a different direction. Then if that other forces keep pulling you in that direction you don't want to go, it's you're not going to get where you want to go. So it's so part of it is just it's definitely been a self-exploration during this fast, because it's I'm deconstructing. Yeah, this experience is definitely aiding me in deconstructing myself and my life, because I'm in such an non-normal state, that it's allowing me to be more of an observer of myself and my life, and see the patterns, deconstruct the patterns, go into situations, like an example of going out to the restaurant, going out and feeling the feelings, noticing the thoughts that I would normally engage with. But because I've chosen to be on this water fast, I'm not engaging with those things anymore. So now I purely am observing them and not just acting upon them, and noticing the connection between the thought, any feeling, and automatic response that I would do when I'm in that situation. And also just making me realize it's not, I don't have to do something like that, just because I go into, it's I don't have to go out to eat, or I don't have to order something unhealthy. I don't have to, in order to have company, in order to have a good conversation, I don't have to do these things, whereas before it felt so I was compelled to, it was expected, I needed to do that. And I'm I didn't do that at all, and everything was fine. So yeah. What else? Yeah, again, energy was pretty steady throughout the day. Energy is pretty steady throughout the day. yeah, a couple of times through the day I started getting like a little bit of a numbing sensation, slightly numbness feeling in my head, like a slight tingly numb sensation. And again, it wasn't quite brain fog, you know. It was more of a physical than a mental thing. It was more of felt it as a sensory experience with, you know, around my head than like a cognitive experience of like fuzzy thinking. You know, so again, I was like, what's that? You know, what's going on? Am I like, is it some other little depletion of something? Is my brain like begging for something? I'm not sure. But like as I'm doing this recording now, I don't feel that sensation at all, and I feel my head feels like pretty normal right now. So it was you know, it was there, it came, and then after a period of time, it passed. So I, you know, can only chalk it up to, you know, there's all kinds of different bodily processes that are occurring in my body right now. You know, things are getting deconstructed, things are getting repaired. You know, any any carbohydrates or any kind of glucose or whatever that's, you know, that's being needed in my body is just being synthesized from my fat and tissues. So there's a lot of things happening right now internally, and a lot of detoxification that's occurring as well, you know. So you know, if I were to give an intuitive guess, you know, it probably was some other detoxification, some kind of detoxification process that was occurring that created this numbing, tingling sensation in my head, you know, and that, you know, lasted for a period of time until that process completed, and then it just faded away and it was done. I was back to feeling, you know, normal head feeling again, whatever that exactly is. But yeah, what else? Anything else? Upper back. Yeah, my upper back I didn't feel as much of my upper back hurting today, you know, or, you know, yeah, didn't feel it as hurting as much during the day. And then I started wearing a splint, like it's a stretchy elastic splint shoulder brace pulling in. So that definitely, like, my shoulders started aching quite, you know, a fair amount as the day continued, because it was applying constant pressure to try to hold my shoulder in a specific place. But it's so hard to, like, I'm going around trying to, you know, go, you know, driving, I'm shopping, I'm, you know, picking out items, putting stuff in the shopping cart, taking things out of the shopping cart, helping my mom to the car, loading stuff in the trunk, opening, closing doors all the time, like, you know, moving around. And it's just, yeah, and I think that's part of why I'm like, man, this hasn't fully settled yet, and I think I'm just moving too much is the problem, and I don't know how to change that right now, because I just, like, seems like there's so many things I have to do right now. But, you know, maybe I'm definitely going to try for, like, I gotta, like, really just shut it down for at least another day or two to try to not let it, gotta get this thing to seat so it stops moving, you know. Anyway, so yeah, so this, I know it's been a long video. Yeah, what else? And then, you know, yeah, definitely I'm learning to surrender and to quit resisting, you know, like that saying of what you resist persists. And I realized there was a lot of things in my life that I was resisting, including things with family and like my mom, and going back to the being careful. Like I was resisting being careful because that was the message I was getting from my mom, and I was finding it annoying, so I would just resist it. So I was living my life like not being careful, which many times turned out very pleasant and pleasurable, and a lot of serendipitous things occurred as a result. But like just a across the board declaration of I'm just not gonna be careful is not wise. And of course wisdom is comes from experience, and experience comes from making bad decisions and knowing what the right one to do is. So I certainly have racked up a lifetime of that. So I would say that it's time for me to step into the wisdom side of things. And in order for me to do that, I need to dropping the not being careful idea, so I started including my mom more into things in my life, and I realized I wasn't including her, pretty much anybody actually. It's like anything in my life, like things, I wasn't sharing my life with my family at all because I was always trying to run away from my family, but the more I tried to run away from them, the more I pulled them into, but then it was just because I created problems because I was just not being careful, and creating drama and stuff in my life. And so like, I brought my mom over to show her my new place that I'm staying at now and how it's all decorated, and she was so happy. And then and I gave her things to do. I was like, hey, here, I gotta change all these clothes hangers and do all these things. And and she was so happy to just participate in something about my life, that was just definitely about my life, and not, and it wasn't just us meeting up out to dinner in a public place, or me just going to her place, have some meal with her and watch some TV with her. I realized she was never, she was completely out of touch with my life and who I am. And I realized, I was like, man, you never got to know me. And I'm like, I'm actually being I've been pretty hypocritical. I've been really hypocritical, because I'm like, in the same token that I've been saying that, from childhood, they never got to know me. But now as an adult, I'm actively practicing keeping any of them from knowing me, which is pretty ironic. And it didn't that didn't occur to me until like literally the last day or two. And definitely doing this fast has really created an opening for me to see those things. So I've been, so I'm actively like, I'm changing, this fast is like becoming a container for me to just like alter my identity. It's like it's I don't know what the word was, catalyst. It's definitely, well, it has been a catalyst. It's a catalyst, and it's this chamber that it's this space, this special space that is enabling, because of such like radical change with not eating creating an opening for the possibility of a complete identity shift. At an identity shift all the way down to a molecular level. Going from an unhealthy, overweight, almost obese, basically obese individual, to being a super slim, fit, ultra healthy, like turning the clock back a couple of decades at a cellular level, purifying my mind, completely altering my self-image, and be like, okay, that old self-image, that was another life, that was another person, and I'm not that person anymore. And so all of those things are opening up for me because of this fast. It's like sacrificing. That's what a fast is. It's like it's an active sacrifice. And in this case, it's like this fast is like I'm sacrificing away all of the old parts of myself. It was starting with the body, parts of me that are not needed anymore, that have been baggage, are burning off like dead wood, burning off all the dead wood. And I'm okay with it at this point. I'm okay with feeling like, even if like 90% of me, 95% of me burns away, and 95% of me is all dead wood and it all burns away, so be it. But if whatever's left is like pure gold, then and then just build up from there. I can create a whole new life that just, be unlike anything I've had before. And so I don't want to stop, I want to keep going till I get to that point, and time is going, and, it's been 2 weeks already. This has gotten messed up, but before I know it, another 2 weeks will go by, and this will get reset, and this will be set and healed up. And I guess I'm not going to break any records into how fast I heal the bone since I rebroke it, but and I'm okay with that. Before I know it, heck, it's like already well into the new year, to January. It's gonna be February before I know it. February, this will all be healed up. Look back, laugh about it. But laugh about it from a brand new body, literally a brand new body. So yeah, it's that's one of my biggest takeaways. I see the power. I see the tremendous power of having a fast like this to completely sacrifice all the old, and in that sacrifice of all the old of your body, all the unhealthiness, the toxicity, damaged tissues, everything is getting cleansed and renewed. That in that process, it's also creates an opening for cleansing and renewing your mind and your perspective on yourself, your life, and like life as a whole, to then cause you to make some potentially major changes in your life. And I know that that's what's happening for me. So if that ever inspires you to take this on, if you want to, if you're not happy with your life, and you've been on a stagnant path, and it feels like there's no changing it, and you're overweight and obese and miserable and all that, like I said, this has a tremendous healing powers that extend way beyond just losing weight. It affects everything. It changes everything. You know? So, yeah. So that's, just leave it at that. All right. I think I've spilled my cup. My cup was pretty full today, but I finally emptied it. Okay. All right. Till the next one. Bye.